आता factor that regulates the population, that is population regulation by density dependent and independent factors. So as we know that the many factors that affect the population, so it is divided into two, that is density dependent and density independent factors. Okay, so the analysis and the study of population growth is important for the balance of ecosystem. So many factors that are typically physical in nature and causes mortality of population regardless of its density. These factors include weather, natural diseases and the pollution. Okay. Now, an individual deer will be killed in a forest fire regardless of how many deer happens to be in that area. Okay, so chances of survival are the same whether the population density is high or low in case of density independent factors. Now, so environment that limits the population growth by altering the birth and the death rate. There are two factors, that is density dependent factor and density independent factor. What is density? So the biomass we can say, or the number of animal or plant that occupy the given area or occupy the particular area is known as the density. Okay, so what determines the number and kind of animal and the plant in that particular area? Why don't animal and plant fulfill their potential to grow exponentially? And what does population regulation mean? And can we detect density dependent regulation in a real population, and how frequent? Now, the regulation of population size, so density dependent factors, there are different type of density dependent factors like competition. So as we already studied, that is a competition between two different species, that is intraspecific species and interspecific species. So a competition, it is for the resources. So density dependent factors are the factors which become more effective when the population size is large in compared with the limited resources. So limited resources, if there is a limited resources, there is a competition for a food, water, shelter, niche and the meat. Now this competition, it sets or affect the carrying capacity, that is maximum population size of the species. The high population density increases the mortality rate when population is overcrowded. So dense population which lead to a physiological stress and ultimately minimizes the reproduction. Example, overcrowding of parasites on host or in a host kills the host. Now, the intraspecific competition for food or prey can lead to decrease the birth rate. Again, in animal population, territory is one of the limited factor. So density dependent factor operate in a large population and cause the population either increase or decrease depending on how it affects the ecosystem. For example, huge population can depict an area of natural resources and the food supply. Deplete. Okay, so there is a depletion of natural resources and a food supply. This causes storage of food and shelter causes reduction of area population due to hunger, thirst and lack of the shelter. Now the predation and the predators. If the excess predation is there, so the number of prey population will be decreases. Now the diseases, as we know that there are different type of diseases that causes the sudden population growth, decrease in sudden population rate or the growth. For example, increase in humidity which produces conditions suitable for epizootic diseases. For example, outbreak of H1N1. Outbreak of these disease that affecting the animal of one kind of the same time. For example, H1N1 outbreak for the hen or the chicken. Now, the next is density independent factor. So, number of organisms present, okay, does not influence the effect of the factor. For example, this density independent factor, these are the natural disaster. Okay. Now, these regulate the population without considering its density and operate on a large and the small population. So, the density independent factors are more effective due to natural disasters like a storm, flood, drought, jungle fire, tsunamis, earthquake, volcanoes, and the landslides. Now, this slide shows the density dependent factors act on a birth and a death rate are example of negative feedback that regulates the population growth. They are affected by many factors such as competition for resources, territory, disease, predation, toxic waste, and intrinsic factors. The crowded population, increasing population density, intensifies the competition for resources and result in a lower birth rate. Now, the competition, as we know that organism may develop in a differences in a niche because of the competition for the resources. Resource partitioning is there. The species coexist only using the part of available resources. Some birds eat the same insect, some hunt for the different places. Now, the next is density dependent factor. Competition, parasitism, disease, and the predation. The factor that affect on a size and growth of population vary with the population density. As we know that, see these density dependent factors. Okay. Now, the density independent factors regulate the population without considering its density and operate on a large and a small population. Fire, weather, temperature, precipitation, tsunami, earthquake, volcanoes, and the landslides. Factors affect the size of population independent or regardless of the population density. The disturbance and the disintegration of natural habitat and certain human activities such as forest cutting, pollution and dam building, etc., that also a density independent factors can cause decrease in a species population no matter how large or small species. A worst storm may kill more than 70% of bird species. Some die due to a direct fire. The other who will survive will also die because of a food, water inadequacy as well as the shelter because of the jungle fire. The density independent factor determines the population changes and sets the stage for the existence of the population. Now, the abiotic factors, so the general effect of weather on population, that is heavy rain that reduces the insect population. Wind carries the migratory insect or bird out of the sea. Again, increase in humidity which produces a condition suitable for epizootics, means the sudden outbreak of a disease. For example, H1N1 virus, like coronavirus, outbreak of the disease affecting the animal of one kind at the same time. For example, corona that affects the human at the same time all over the world. Insect blown up or it is destroyed because of snow covered mountain peaks. Again, heavy rain. The effect of temperature on a development. So developmental time decreases with the increase in a temperature, or developmental rate increases with increase in a temperature. So particular temperature is required for the development. Now, the time of year and geographical location can dramatically affect the growth of an insect with respect to a temperature. For example, here the example of grasshopper species Columenella pedicula, when reared at 32 degrees Celsius, it produces 20 to 30 times as many as eggs than those reared at 22 degrees Celsius. The effect of climate on a population. So, the combination of temperature, air movement, humidity, rainfall can dramatically affect the success of a natural enemy in a given location. So, the variable temperature, air, humidity, rainfall considered together are equivalent to the term climate. So, these affect the population growth, and these are the abiotic factors. Thank you.